All right, and welcome back to Saturday Night Chit Chat. And man, it's been a little while since I've seen this gentleman. I think definitely pre-pandemic, and so I'm glad we finally connected. I'm super excited to have him on the show. I have so many. I know Jason, we've played a few times together, but I've got his bio just reads on and on and on. So a lot of cool questions I want to ask him about that. So everybody here on the show, please welcome Mr. Jason Hann from String Cheese Incident, Iota, and 1,000 more. Yes. How you doing, brother?
I'm doing good. Great to see you, Freak.
Yeah, man. So, how you been, how's your last, whatever 16 months been? You been hanging in there?
Yeah, that's a hard summary to sum up.
Right.
Overall, it's just trying to make the best of it. Like I think most people have. And for me personally, there were lots of successes. Like during that time, I lost about 75 pounds, which,
oh, congratulations.
yeah, it's taken forever for me to get my weight under control like that.
Can I ask you, was it an exercise thing, a diet thing, or a combination of both?
It was it was 90% diet, maybe 95% diet.
And and what did you change?
Well, I basically, my wife got me a calorie counter app. She turned me onto it. She just started with it, and she was like, "Oh, you should check this out." And I had time.
Yeah, sure.
Check it out. And my gym closed. I do boxing usually when I'm in town.
Oh,
and
nice.
My boxing gym was closed. And I was like, I wasn't up for really going out or going anywhere. We were doing the full quarantine thing. And I was like, well, I'm going to try just trying to lose weight just on diet alone, which is something I've never tried in all my years.
Wow.
And it really was the thing. I got into the sort of game of it. And a big thing for me when I started losing weight was like, well, if I'm going to do this thing, I want to do it and feel like I'm happy doing it, like not feel like, oh God, I'm so hungry, or I can't wait till this thing is over.
Sure, of course, right.
And it really became more of a game of just kind of playing with numbers, weighing myself every day, and I loved it. And with that frame of mind, it also it transferred over into like the way I practiced on a day-to-day, the way I practice music. As far as just like, doing something with an attitude of, without the anxiety of it, with just like going for it and being like happy and like enjoying the practice process. If something is really hard, it's just like, take a deep breath and relax, slow things down. Maybe you have a couple of do-overs in there.
Yeah.
And then for where you're at that day, feel good about what you're doing. And then there's even more of a reward when you get something or you achieve another goal within that.
That's incredible, man. Well, congratulations. That's super cool to hear that, all that. That's super inspiring. So, so are you like right now, are you in LA, like California right now?
I'm in LA right now. Yep. This is my studio at home. You can see there's still a little green screen.
Yeah. I was wondering if you're doing some video work or something like that. Cause I see that in a lot of people I interview having those hanging around. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Well, in String Cheese world, we were doing a thing called Friday Night Cheese, and somewhere around I think it was around Halloween time of last year, I got voted by the band members to be like the official host of the Friday Night Cheese.
Nice.
And I was feeling like I had to step up my game, and I'm like, let me check out green screen again. I had a lot of time to check it out.
Yeah.
So I got into it and just made that fun. But now I feel pretty comfortable working with video, and that's another one of those being at home things, like grab another skill and go into it. And I'm not super pro at it, but I have the confidence to be like, oh, let me throw that thing together.
Yeah.
And I might as well fly through space.
Yeah.
On a green screen while I'm doing it.
That's incredible. You got your little Marvel Studios right there.
Yeah.
That's awesome. Yeah. I did something similar. As I broke down, and when I started knowing I was going to do this show on a weekly basis, I was like, I don't want to look too ghetto. So I learned something called OBS, which you probably heard of, which is online broadcasting system, which is, what all like the people like CNN and stuff, they use more of a high tech version of that, but you can bring in different graphics and all kinds of stuff. And it just sat there and just, stayed locked on YouTube like nonstop for, like 15 hours straight, just watching every video I could to learn it, and I'm so glad I did, because it's another skill that I always kind of wanted to learn, but when we're on the road, it's hard to figure out that time to do that type of thing,
Oh yeah, to take the time to do that on the road. Road is just like either going over the material, getting to the next city. So many factors. Like you don't want to be in like, oh, I'm gonna check out this tutorial.
Right, exactly, right.
But do you have something handy there? I love your setup over there. Do you have like an OBS little graphic you can bam right now? Or?
Well, no, I have to I kind of do it as it's running on air, so it's I can't do it like right now, but yeah, I'll get with you on it. It's pretty it's a definitely, I would definitely check it out. I mean, there's other companies like Streamlabs and stuff that kind of do more of an user friendly, that they're a little bit easier, but if you can check out the original OBS, and it's free too. It's free. It's
right on.
Yeah, it's a free software. You just download it to your computer, and you basically set up scenes, and then different, you can pull different scenes, graphics, images, videos, whatever the case may be. It's pretty cool. Yeah, it's pretty neat the way it's done. Yeah, so, and it's pretty intuitive. I mean, if someone stupid like me could figure it out, I'm sure you could figure it out.
And then someone stupid like me could figure it out.
Yeah, so you're good there.
Well, go ahead.
No, I was gonna say, so you're in LA now. Now, are you a California native? Is that where you are born in that side of the country? I wasn't sure.
I grew up in Miami, and
okay, got it.
Yeah, I'm a Miami kid. I got out to California because right after high school, I wasn't sure if I was gonna try and do music for a living, and I didn't really know what I wanted. And so I was like, I'm gonna join the Navy.
Oh wow!
And I joined the Navy when I was 17.
Wow!
Still. And one of the reasons why I came out to California is because at that time, a lot of my favorite bands from high school were on this label called SST, which is more like, that's like the Minutemen,
right.
Black Flag and Meat Puppet.
I had Mike Watt on the show about a month and a half ago. Yeah, actually, we're doing a track together right now, which I'm super excited about. Yeah.
That dude, he's really one of my superheroes of superheroes.
Me too, and one of the coolest guys you could ever imagine too. Yeah. I mean, like he's one. When you meet legendary people like that, you always get a little nervous because like hopefully they're cool, and he's about as cool as you can imagine. Yeah.
Oh, that's what I love. There's another percussionist, drummer friend of mine named Danny Frankel, who I think he used to play with like Lou Reed while Lou was still alive, and he's old school like CBGBs. But he does shows with Mike Watt, and I kind of do the same thing to him. I was like, "You playing with Mike Watt again?" At first, I really want to see him do one of those shows. Yeah, I'm never in town to really catch it. But really, Mike Watt has been there. There's like these little alternate universes of music for myself. Like there's a whole jazz aspect, there's a funk aspect. There's a pop aspect, there's an avant-garde aspect, that world music aspect that I really enjoyed, and like punk music is definitely one of those aspects. There was a time in like late 80s and early 90s where I was just so into alternative music, and I felt, and some of the people that I was playing with that were my age, those were like the bands that we wanted to put together in high school, and we wanted to just wreck shop with an attitude.
Were you, do you think that, that eclectic, you said you're from Miami, right? I mean, do you think that that comes from kind of growing up there, because that's such an eclectic music, mecca, with different influences from all kinds of places? I mean, do you think that's part of it, or?
Yeah, absolutely. Like Miami's a trippy thing, and my history with music in Miami is kind of trippy. My dad's a musician, he's a guitar player and singer.
Nice.
And he's and his second wife is from Trinidad. And so I grew up like listening to soca music and Jamaica music, like the same time I was listening to, say, like Paul Simon and Led Zeppelin.
Sure.
Just like rock and roll. I thought it was all sort of the same music. Like I didn't get that difference because, when you're like in elementary school, kids aren't talking about music as much, maybe at like a sock hop,
right.
There's people are dancing, but it's not a topic that comes up as much. And so I just kind of thought it was all sort of the same thing. And listening to my dad's music, that was a lot of, that was rock and roll, like 60s rock, but my dad's a R&B guitar player. He was in Wayne Cochran and the CC Riders back in the 60s.
Wasn't Jocko in that band?
Jocko was in the band right after my dad left.
Wow.
And my dad and Jocko were really good friends.
Wow.
You know, this was pre-Jocko getting into drugs and stuff. But
sure.
Yeah, but there's a good story that my dad and his brother, my dad's brother is a drummer, and they used to play in Overtown in Miami, which is a rough section of town, all black clubs there, and you, especially in the late 60s, you wouldn't find any white people playing in those clubs. And my dad and his brother had a trio, and they'd play in these clubs. And something, I think Jocko was maybe like 14 years old, and before he was playing bass, he would sneak into that club, you know, from Fort Lauderdale to Overtown. It was like, how the hell did this little kid get out there? And he would sneak into the club, and then on the set break, he would say, I'm gonna you know, play in your band one day or something.
Wow.
I tell that to my dad's brother, who's the drummer.
Yeah.
You know, so just attitude, but you know,
that's a great story.
So many Jocko stories like that. So that's a whole nother aspect of, you know, there's a world music thing.
Right.
Some of the punk music scene. And
the reason I brought that up, Jason, is because I've seen so many interviews with Jocko himself, and it's almost like saying similar things that you're saying too, because he had all those, you know, from world beat to punk to funk to, you know, like all the, and he attributed a lot of it from the part of the country he grew up in, obviously, which was, you know, Florida too as well. So that's what made me think of it. Yeah.
That's cool. Yeah. And then on the other side, my mom's Colombian, so I'm half Colombian, and I'm so sorry about that.
That's all right.
On my like early on, and mom was raising me and my sis, and but my mom's a great dancer, and she would take us to all the calle ochos, like all these street parades of all the different sort of ethnic groups down in Miami. So we'd go down to Little Havana for their big fest. We'd go down to Little Haiti for their big fest. I don't know if I don't remember a Little Jamaica, but there were a lot of reggae fests in Miami. And my mom loved going to all of those. So, you know, all of that music, it was just around. So that just seemed like.
And were you already playing at this point? I mean, were you?
No, I'm like 8 years old.
Got it.
So I didn't start playing until I was 11. But all of this early part, you know, the one, I only saw Jocko one time, but my dad took me to see one of his bass clinics before I was playing music.
Yeah.
I know one of the things that made me want to play music, actually, like,
I can't imagine.
What is that? What is that a human? What did I just see?
Right.
And then on my mom's side, it was always a lot of ethnic music and just really fun music to dance to. Like, you know, wow. Yeah.
Wow, that's incredible. And then did you start, you know, most people know you as more percussionist side of drums. Did you start off more like on kit? Did you start off on more like a marching band thing? I mean, like what was your jump off point into the drum world?
I really started at the same time. Jump off point was I would go see my dad's band play at a marina called Rum Runner Bay.
Okay.
Biscayne Boulevard and 163rd Street, and that was about 3 blocks from where I lived at the time. So my mom said that I could go see my dad's band play if I finished all my homework. If I showed her I finished all my homework, then I could go. He would start sets at like 7, go like 7 to 11.
Yeah.
And I could go over there and hang out if I showed that I was on with my homework. And so that was incentive enough to get my stuff done. And then I'd go over there, and then my dad would have some of the best players in Miami play with him. He'd have like guys from Jimmy Buffett's band sitting in with him, but he also had these guys from the University of Miami who would eventually become Gloria Estefan's Miami Sound Machine. They became all the writers and
right, sure.
And so just like these absolute badasses. And University of Miami was already known as an incredible music school.
Right.
And I mean, that Jocko was teaching there, Pat Metheny was teaching there, and so there is this world where I got to see these incredible musicians play. but because I was so young, I was like 11 years old.
Yeah.
I had to sit sort of at the back of the stage, and I would do my homework there. So if I looked up, I couldn't see the hands of my dad playing guitar or the bass player, but I had a great view of, like, drummer.
Oh,
I could see the feet, I could
sure.
see the hands.
Yeah, yeah.
And there was definitely some osmosis that kicked in, because I would just
Yeah.
tap on the table, I'd move my feet. I'm like, I would kind of learn the things. And then, but if my dad would have like a percussionist or something, that would be the guy that would be like on the breaks. He would be like, oh, come on over here. You like the, I could see you like airing the congas.
Yeah,
I'm like, yeah, it's cool. He's like, do this, do that. And he would show me some things on the break, and I'd be stoked. It was a little bit of his sort of master plan, because I ended up becoming a really good wingman for him.
Oh, nice.
He'd want to like pick up chicks there.
Right, sure.
So he showed me some technique on the congas, and then so a lady would come up and say, oh, it's so
you'd have
nice.
this cute little kid next to him, right? Yeah,
it's so nice that you're showing him music. He's drinking, he's got arm on his hip. Yeah, and I'd like play it up. I'd be like, yeah, I'm so happy you could take the time to show me.
That's great.
So that was good. But so congas first in that regard, and then the drummer would see that I was interested in rhythm stuff, and just sit me down on the breaks, and
or see how you're bringing ladies to the stage. Maybe I should get in on this too, right?
No. Well, I was just happy for him, because he looked really happy, and I'm like learning something. It's like,
right, of course,
cool.
right.
I'm hanging out with my dad and music. But yeah, so eventually one time, one of the drummers just sat me down to start the set, and my dad's facing the audience, and he counted off, out loud, but I was the one that started playing the song.
Wow.
And then
you could play a beat, and obviously by that point and stuff.
At that point, like, I could play that dude's drum fills, because I would air them all the time.
Oh, right. You had it down. Right. Okay.
Yeah, it was an easy, like, Caribbean song. Yeah. And about 30 seconds into it was when my dad turned around and he saw I was playing, and he was like, oh, we should get him some lessons.
Oh, that's
Let's
great.
do that.
That's awesome. That's awesome.
Really
And so through high school, you were doing, I'm sure, a lot of like high school bands, right? Playing kit, predominantly, I'm assuming, in those type of bands, right? Yeah. And that was all over the map in terms of musically, like you were saying, or was it more towards the punk stuff, or at that point in high school, or what were you?
That was all over the map. Junior high school was more like, were my heavy metal friends that would get in trouble all the time, and we were doing like Dokken and Ozzy and Rush and Quiet Riot and stuff, and Iron Maiden. But then when I got into high school, my crew that's when I was getting into both punk music, but also like King Crimson, Discipline era. And that threw my world around. I was getting into Peter Gabriel at the time, but then started getting into more like say Steely Dan, as far as like, oh wow, that's another what do you say? It's just another level of musicianship kind of going on, and my experience listening to. But then it was all like Minutemen and James Blood Ulmer and the Coding Society, and like stuff that Vernon Reid was doing that wasn't Living Color, you know? Like, there's a whole, I think it's called the Black Rock Coalition.
Yeah, exactly.
And we were doing some of that, and then, but so it was all over the place. Talking Heads in there too. That where I always thought of them more as a punk band at first, until I was like, wow, these guys are super groovy, you know?
Right, totally. And then let's kind of zap the timeline up just a little bit. So you said it was after high school you moved to LA, is that right? Sometime after high school? Okay. And then did you kind of start getting and gigging with folks like fairly, or was it took a little bit, or?
Yeah, no, I was gigging with my dad while I was in high school. That's kind of how I made my money in high school, and that was great. And again, I wasn't sure if I wanted to do music for a living, joined the Navy, but when I got in the Navy and I got out to San Diego, I ended up connecting with these musicians from Africa and these Afro-Cuban musicians.
Oh, wow.
Just like walking around downtown San Diego, it's right on the border with Tijuana there. A lot of Mexican musicians used to come up and play jazz. They might play mariachi, down in Tijuana, but come up to San Diego to play jazz. And then all of a sudden, I was running into a lot of African musicians because San Diego would be this place where it had a giant Somalian community because of the refugee crisis that was happening in East Africa. So there were a lot of East Africans, and I ended up being in a band playing soukous music. Not sure if you're familiar with soukous music. That's from Democratic Republic of Congo.
Oh, wow.
Used to be called Zaire. Bass playing on that stuff is unbelievable.
Oh, I'm sure.
But we had a Kenyan singer, 2 Zairean singers, and a Rwandan singer. And all of a sudden we're playing this African music, and I tried out for the band, and all I really knew was soca beats. I didn't know African beats in particular.
Yeah.
But it was close enough, and then I got into it. And then when we started playing all of these African parties up and down the West Coast, and I got to read something about that. I'm so sorry. And it really became a thing. We started playing for a thing called Afropop Worldwide, which is kind of like a standard of Afropop music at the time. That if you were on that show, you're in the international zone. Like, a lot of people are hearing you all over the world.
Wow.
So and that translated. There was also a time I was walking around downtown San Diego, and I heard these African drums. I'm like, man, what is going on over there? And that was in a pretty bad part of town. Downtown San Diego used to be gnarly. And especially for like a sailor, you were just like a target to get scammed or something happen or get mugged or something. But I walked down there and I see these guys playing, and they're playing, at the time I didn't know they were djembes, but I'm like, what is this music? And it's just all drums, and they're having a big dance class. And I asked them afterwards, I'm like, wow, that was really inspiring. Are you guys teaching? And they were like, no. And like, oh, but the dance teacher that was leading the class, she said, but if you want, you can take the dance class so you can be around the drums and listen to them as well. And I'm like, well, I don't know how to dance, but I'll do that. And so I started doing the dance class, and that's how I could be around those drums, and eventually became really good friends with those guys, and started learning djembe music, West African djembe music from them.
Wow.
It's good stuff.
That's incredible, man. Yeah. Jeez, oh, wow. I mean, man, I hope you're writing a book. That's all I got to say. Man. That's quite an adventure there. So, so let's I'm going to kind of jump the timeline up probably a few years. So, like, string cheese incident. So Colorado based, right? Obviously. And had they been gigging before you were in the band? I mean, were they already a thing before you jumped in?
Oh yeah, they started 94, and I got invited to play with them in 2004. As far as being on a tour, and I probably sat in with them, I think 2 times in 1999 in Los Angeles and San Diego.
Okay.
And then Travis, the drummer in String Cheese.
Also your partner in Iota too, obviously. Right?
Yes, exactly. Yeah. He called me out of the blue, found my number on a website of a Santana tribute band that I was in, that I hadn't played in years, but my name was still associated there. He called that guy gave him my number. And then he said, he asked me if I was in town on this particular date. And at that time, I was actually with Isaac Hayes. I was in Isaac Hayes' band.
Yeah, I remember you telling me you gigged with him for a while. That is crazy. Wow.
Yeah, and we were out all the time, but I happened to have this one weekend open where these guys were in town, and I said, "Oh man, I can't believe the timing. I'm in town." He said, "Well, come on down." And I'm like, "Well, what should I bring?" And he's like, "Well, bring whatever you can. There's a chance we might be looking for someone to join the band, but just bring stuff that you do, some of the electronic stuff, and some of the world music stuff. Just bring some drums that address that." Yeah. And I was like, cool. And so that was the invite and the spark to go down there. And then when I sat in like the second set of their show in LA, and then they asked me if I wanted to play that weekend in Las Vegas with them. And so I was able to do one of those shows. And
Yeah.
then after that, they asked me to do fall tour with them. And, you know, it
It's
just
got,
kept kind of
right,
going.
just kept evolving from there. Wow.
Yeah.
That's amazing. Wow. And then how long, because, you know, I remember when Iota started, you know, making a buzz, but that was a bit ago. I mean, how long, what was that, 2010-ish? Is that around when Iota started? Something like that?
Well, we started, so I joined String Cheese in 2004. Iota started in 2006.
Oh, wow. Was it that then?
But that was just like 1 or 2 gigs. And
Okay.
then there was a time where String Cheese was going on hiatus after 2007.
Yeah.
And me and Travis were like, oh, what are we gonna do during that time? Because see, we kind of assumed the other guys in the band could, you know, they have lots of songs in the band, and me and Travis don't have songs per se.
Sure.
In the band. And we're like, what are we gonna do? And we had been doing, I would say at Travis's place, we'd been doing this looping thing. We did a couple of gigs, did a couple of festivals, but we're like, well, maybe we could try to make this thing take off.
Yeah.
And that started a whole thing where we got into an RV and we just started booking shows. And Travis had like connect on, you know, this whole like, you know, cities not more than 2 or 3 hours apart that we could just link together all over the country and do a run.
And you guys were booking yourself at that point? No agent at that point?
Correct. Yeah.
Wow.
It was just Travis knew all the guys that had some sort of relationship, you know, with String Cheese at a time. Maybe they had outgrown those promoters.
Yeah.
And reconnected and then but what our expectation was like, oh, we're gonna come in, you know, killing it already, at least for people getting hyped about it. But it was such a thing that we were doing that, man, we were working on, you know, 20 people showing up and being happy that we could pay for gas to the next city. Yeah. Like it was a full restart because the music is so nothing like String Cheese.
Right.
It was kind of a turnoff for like hardcore String Cheese fans, and we had to end up taking String Cheese off the name off the flyers because it was, you know, we'd prefer to have like 10 young kids there being like, what the fuck are you guys doing? Versus like 10 of those guys there and another 50 people going like, what the fuck are you guys doing? You know?
Right. Sure. Yeah. Right.
So we, you know, get that little chip on your shoulder, and we were loving what we were doing. So we dove in and we booked ourselves and made it go. And we were, the 2 years after that, we were, you know, booking over 200 shows a year and had just the most ridiculous schedule while String Cheese was on break. Yeah,
I mean, I remember seeing you guys for that 2 or 3 year span. and was like everywhere. You guys were all kind, you know, and you know, different spots, even like spots I wouldn't even expect you to be. Like, you know, I was thinking kind of more like the String Cheese, like, you know, thing, and it was like obviously way more into the electronic world for sure. Yeah.
And it would reflect that in the crowd. The crowds that were coming were mostly just wherever that 21 mark was at the bar, you know.
Yeah.
And what was I going to say? And then we could go through our years back then. We would hit almost every city in the U.S. like 3 times, you know, throughout the course of a year. That's how much we were on the road. So. It was crazy, really good times. And I mean,
the good thing, it was just a duo, right? So you probably just had you and probably like one other crew person or merch person, right? So it's probably, you know, in terms of the overhead, probably wasn't too crazy, I guess, at least when you were getting started, right?
Yep, and we were getting started. And even when we did finally get to a crew guy, we all still just crashed in the RV. Or if we were going to after party, we would be like, hey, do you have a room where one of us could crash in or something like that? Somebody gets a nice sleep. And really, it was just making money we were happy if we got money to, you know, fill up on gas. And,
right.
You know, and we could pay our lunch and stuff. And after a while, it kept getting better. And there was some launching point somewhere.
Sure.
Yeah.
Wow, that's incredible. Well, let's kind of zap now to where we're at now, and this question is always, I mean, it's literally evolving week to week. I mean, just to give you an idea, I had Joey Porter on last week, you know, from NoTat, right?
Awesome. Yes.
And Saturday night, we're talking about what Jazz Fest is going to be like this year. And then the next day, or it was 2 days later or whatever it was, you know, the things gets canceled. So, so everything, you know, who knows by the time, you know, we're you know, most people watch the show, because 90% of the people probably watch us on the rebroadcast, you know,
Right.
and so in terms of live music, where do you think, let's, you know, not say right now, because we're in some craziness right now, as we all know, but like say, you know, 2022, is 2022 going to be just like 2019 all over again, you think? Or do you think, I mean, what's, you know, or even in the, you know, even, you know, say over the next 6 months, where do you think we're going to be at with live music? I mean, we think we're way to getting back to, I know there is no normal in the music business, but I mean, you know, between your gut and talking to other people in the industry, what's your feeling on where we're at on things?
Yeah, well, we just had a big String Cheese meeting yesterday on all of that, because we start tour this Friday in Louisville, and it's a big deal on how we're handling it, how we feel like the fans will handle it, and just being out at this time. Like, what does that even mean? Fish is out, Widespread Panic is out, Jazz Fest just got canceled, and we know that we know that for this run we're probably going to be a little bit more in a bubble ourselves, as far as, you know, probably not doing any we're not going to do any after party stuff. It's going to be just like whoever's on the bus, whoever's in the crew, to just keep it together, and this is all work, you know, this is work for the next bunch of weeks, and being grateful for that, and masking up backstage, and we just want to be careful with that right now, as everything's getting a lot worse. Man, it's so hard to tell what's gonna happen.
What part of the country you guys are you guys all over, or is it one part of the country you're kind of, you know, in mostly for this little run? Or
I would say it's sort of the South.
Oh,
I
know. Yeah.
So we're like Louisville, but we're also like Wilmington. Let's see, Wilmington. We're Asheville, and then we're Nashville at a certain point. Dates off the top of my head, that's the zone. That's
any Florida stuff in there?
No Florida. We miss Florida. We have Halloween. Halloween's still scheduled.
Right.
So that's late October, and the feeling is that the next 4 weeks that it might follow what the UK just kind of went through.
Right.
Where they just had things really bad, and now they're evening out. Like they started their wave before we're starting our wave. Yeah. And so hopefully that's how we get a grip on things. But man, you know, between the politics of it all and what's actually happening and what we're gonna get ready to see on a day-to-day basis, there's just so many factors.
It is. You know, I mean, it's impossible to predict. You know, I mean, it really. I mean, and it's weird how like. You know, I mentioned Joey and I actually just played together 3 or 4 weeks ago in Columbus together at a gig. And we were just saying, I mean, that seems like it was 2 years ago now. It was 3 weeks ago, you know, because that 3 weeks ago, it felt like, oh, things are starting to, you know, I'm starting to see this, things are starting to feel a little normal again, you know, and, you know, and then like 3 weeks later, it's like, whoa, you know, so it's, you know, but yeah, I have been watching the UK closely, as I'm sure everybody has, and you're right, they did the same thing we did, and now they look like they're kind of leveling off a little bit. So hopefully, I mean, the States obviously are a lot, it's such a diverse place, which is, it's our strongest attribute, you know, the United States, and it's also can be the hardest attribute too, as we know. Absolutely. Because it is so diverse, you know. So well, what about so you got that coming up with String Cheese? Does Iota have anything like tentatively on the books yet, or is that still kind of in a holding pattern until things settle down?
Well, Iota, actually, we just announced a sort of a closing of Iota.
I didn't know that. Wow.
We did. That was maybe 3 weeks ago.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah, and it's just kind of being, you know, first we weren't going to be doing any shows until probably next year.
Of course,
that was where we started this year.
Right.
And then it was like, what is that going to look like when we start up again? Yeah. And then it just ended up being better to, you know, to do that and sort of go out on a high note. Yeah. Because there was going to be a pretty large amount of work to go into getting things going. We just got rid of management and booking. And it was going to need a lot of work and a lot of things to to start on almost another path.
Right. Sure.
So I've been just saying that, just appreciative that we kept that thing going for 14 years, probably over
incredible. I didn't
shows.
Wow, it is amazing.
Got to headline Red Rocks 2 times.
Wow.
For an improv band, improv electronic band where you're playing for people that are used to the fast pace of like a DJ. Every 2 or 3 minutes switching things up, and we were able to improv songs and keep that kind of a flow going for and play for these unreal crowds, and for like Electric Forest and Swanee and summer camp regularly. Usually we'd have about 15,000 people for most of this, and so there's so much to be thankful and appreciative and proud of.
Wow. And then
go ahead.
Yeah. No, I was gonna say, do you besides training, do you have any like recording? Obviously, I think I'm seeing you actually next month. Fingers crossed in Chicago with Mr. Marcinic. Yeah, if everything goes okay there. But any recording projects or anything you got? You working with anybody or little side projects that you could tell us about?
Nothing in particular that's like an ongoing thing. I definitely played on a bunch of people's projects during the pandemic.
Of course,
off the top of my head now, it's hard to remember. There's so many sort of one-off things.
Right.
But I just did some music for like a video game
cool.
it was just like for a certain section, and that I can't really talk about.
Sure.
but it was nice to do that, because I'm like, oh dang, I haven't done that in a while, and I used to be I used to do studio work all the time before I was on the road, doing commercials and movies and things like that. But it's been a long time since probably a couple of years since I've got a call for one of those kinds of things. So it was great to be sort of in that mode, and that's a whole nother mode,
Yeah, I bet. Yeah. That's amazing.
But really good.
Wow. Well, man, I'm you're inspiring to just, when I always kind of do a little background on, I knew a lot about you before I even gave you a call, but I try to do a little deep dive on stuff. And I was like, whoa, I'm like reading stuff. I'm like, whoa, you played on this, you did this. So nice. It's inspiring career. And I'm sure, you've got plenty more to go, and, congratulations on all your new health things that's happening with you. And, hopefully this nation, stays on this trajectory of good health for everybody, and we can all get out there and, keep making the world rumble a little bit together,
Please do. Like, everyone just take care of each other, right?
Yes. That's it. It's a shame that like this, it's, a health thing has turned into like a political thing, it's like, that's probably that's the saddest part of the whole thing. No matter which side of the spectrum you're on, it's just like, this shouldn't even be in that conversation. It's like, it's a whole different thing. It doesn't have anything to do with that, so hopefully hopefully it'll get better. We'll see. But I have faith. I'm a glass half full type guy. So
same here, man.
Yeah, you got to be a musician. That's what we operate on. So.
You know what? And I'm still digging your setup. It's super groovy. I keep checking that out behind you. You gotta. You know what? I'm super.
This is what I'm super geeked. I just got this, Jason, a couple days ago.
What do you got?
This is the MPC-1. I was raised on in 2000. I literally that's how I learned how to record. And when I first met Bootsy, everybody was like, "Oh, I bet you learned all this cool bass stuff." He's like, "No, dude." He used to take me in the studio and he just showed me how to run an MPC 2000 and how to sample and do that stuff. So I knew. And then so this just came out during the pandemic. I think it just came out like 8 months ago, and it's literally full-fledged standalone. You don't even need a computer if you don't want one. It's fully standalone if you want. And it's
love it, man.
Yeah, so I've just been getting into that, which is I really the MPC. It's like that ecosystem of it, that whole world. If you understand it, I feel at home again, because that's kind of I grew up. I almost had one of those as early as I had a bass, So it's nice to there. I can't reckon, and this is no advertisement for Akai or whatever, but I'm. if that's your world at all, I mean, it's unbelievable. It's an unbelievable piece and reasonably priced too. They're only around like $700-800 too, you know?
Oh, that's really awesome. I'm sure the memory on it is jacked and
yeah. And of course you got the, you know, smart card. You can, you know,
yeah.
put as much as you want on there, you know? So
I was gonna say, it's just funny that you say that because one of the things really early on, like pretty much when I was around, I want to say 14 years old, one of the drummers with my dad, his name's Joe Galdo, he ended up producing like all the Miami Sound Machine stuff back in the day. Incredible producer, but he was more known as a studio drummer before he did that. And I remember I was at my dad's house one time, and he's like, "Oh yeah, my friend Joe is gonna come over, and he's gonna bring like a drum machine." I think he called it a drum machine at the time. Yeah. And before that, there were like these Boss little rhythm composers.
Right. Oh yeah.
But he was gonna program a song that my dad had written, and he brought over a Linn drum.
Oh yeah.
Like the first Linn drum.
I would love to get my hands on one of those ones.
Oh man. Yeah. So he was showing me that. I'm seeing him program. I could still remember this one reggae drum fill he programmed. It's like one ding ding ding. I remember that freaking fill. Yeah. I'm like, what was that? And that has accompanied me. I mean, it's one of the reasons why Iota was able to get going. And I used to play on a lot of MIDI drum and percussion.
Yeah, sure.
In the 90s, that was one of my gigs, studio gigs. But it was like having that technology, thinking about it early on, and then knowing that guy just went on to just rule the studio scene in Miami. You know, starting out as that was his gateway to being a producer, because no one but him had that machine at first.
Yeah,
got all those.
Well, that's on all those early Prince records too. Obviously, the Linn drum is you know that. Yeah, all those classic Prince records is all Linn drum. Yeah, so
yeah, and that was the first thing in my mind. It was like, oh, you got to know that too.
Yeah, right.
You know I mean, and it's been a beautiful accompanying thing that's gone along the timeline, is like, you learn percussion, learn drum set, learn computer stuff.
Yeah, and as you know, it's like it's an instrument. You know, I mean, it's not. You know, a lot of people think of it as like, you know, like substituting for an instrument. No, it's not It's not a substitution. It's an addition, not a substitution. You know.
Absolutely. Yeah. It's all how you wrap yourself in it, because it's a beautiful thing when you're able to sit down and layer parts and have what's going on in your mind, being able to transfer that and then help out another artist in that regard. And make it, and then the difference is how musical you make it is what separates you from what other people are doing with it.
Exactly. Well, and the cool thing about all of the machines, Linn's want like this too, but the MPC, which is really neat, is it's got, that's why all the hip hop guys use it. It's got like the way it quantizes, it has its own kind of like feel to it. Like I've heard people that have recorded like fully in a DAW and then run it back through for the quantization through the MPC, just because they wanted that feel, you know, of it, because it's a different kind of, it's got this little laid back swing to it. That's, you know, like Dre and all those guys use it because it's got that feel to it, you know. So yeah, it's great stuff for sure. All right, we better watch out. We could go down this rabbit hole, and that's a whole new podcast we'll have to start.
I love you, Freak. Yeah, man.
All right, well, man, thanks so much. I'm glad, you know, congratulations on everything that's going on, and it's going to be exciting to see you hopefully next month, and also out on the road with String Cheese and all the other projects you got going on, and, you know, stay safe and healthy, and I'll see you hopefully very soon, brother. Thanks for being on.
Man. Take care, Freak.
You too.
See you, man.